Welcome to The Read Along,
a mini book club for your ears.
I'm your host, Scott.
I'm your other host, Anita.
And join us on a journey through a good book,
one chapter at a time.
Do you like talking about movies? Do you like talking about mediocre movies? Do you like talking about how you could have fixed mediocre movies? Well, I certainly do, and you can listen to me, Scott C. Bourgeois, along with my co-hosts Greg Beaver and Liam Creswick, as we give our notes, and I have some notes. You can follow it now on your podcatcher of choice, or support it by visiting patreon.com/IHaveSomeNotes. We kind of have a semi-regular recording schedule.
Kind of and semi, yes.
And I say semi because the last 3 months, it feels like it's been impossible to record on time. Something has continuously come up every single time.
There have been issues, it's true.
And I mean, part of it was expected because you were doing your show.
Yeah, I was busy.
And that obviously was going to put a bit of a wrinkle into our regular recording schedule. But just since your show, I don't think a single regular recording time has landed. Something has come up every time. And
that is out of my hands, I'm sorry.
Actually kind of starting to get frustrating. But we are still recording, even if not when we intended to.
Yeah, we still put the episodes together. We still get them out on time. And when I say we, I mean you, because you do 99% of the work.
Which is the reason why it's somewhat aggravating.
Yeah, I get it. And I'm
because
sorry.
It throws off all of the rest of the time that I have set aside for the production and getting the episode
editing
posted. And so, that all gets moved. The good news is today we're actually recording on the right day for the first time in weeks.
It's not at the right time, but
if
we're
not
close.
Necessarily at the right time. Yeah, little look behind the curtain at how the sausage is getting made here.
A little BTS for everybody.
Indeed, but we are recording and we are looking at our next chapter. But before then, perhaps we start with a brief recap of our previous chapter.
Yes.
Chapter
6.
Indeed. That would have been Chapter 6, The Lovers, where 13 has maybe some weird feelings about the artist, certainly enough that she decides to not kill the artist today.
Correct.
And then goes to meet Prudence, who may be an early production model of a portrait. We're not 100% certain.
I'm not 100% sure about Prudence. I feel like there's more.
Yeah, and was suspiciously human-like.
Yeah.
Prudence gets murdered, leaving an enigmatic mystery for her family. And then...
Prudence gets murdered in self-defense.
After trying to defend herself.
Yeah.
And then 13 is told by Lulabelle that she needs to book it because mitosis. Apparently not too happy with what's going on.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
And that leads us into Chapter 7, The Chariot of 13 Ways to Kill Lulabelle Rock by Maud Woolf. 13's next target is going to be easy to locate because the good news is she's got a whole itinerary laid out.
Oh, a tight schedule.
Indeed. Apparently, this is like Gossip Girl Lulabelle. She's the one who goes out and has enigmatic meetings and is seen flirting with the right people and exchanges gossip with other people.
Yeah, and fighting with the right people and
just
causing scenes.
Creating intrigue to keep the public kind of interested in what's going on with Lulabelle
Gossip
Rock.
and intrigue.
Indeed. And has, as you say, a very tight schedule.
Yes.
But also a very vague schedule.
Yes.
All of the names are just in secret code,
just
meet
initials.
with AG, meet with MMTR.
Meet with AG, have a fight.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Be flirty.
Yeah.
Improvise sad. It's
weird, vague acting directions.
Indeed. And so that's where 13 needs to go. But decides on the way she's going to swing by the park, Martyr Park, where she's been told there are nice ducks because she still has a last wish to grant to Lulu the secretary in the trunk. Yeah. So she makes her way to the park first.
Well, I'm under the impression that it's on the way.
Yeah, kind of on the way.
Right? The poor thing. 13, the poor thing, has to get the secretary out of the trunk
Mm-hmm.
and then haul this body.
Yeah, it's like a Central Park situation.
Yeah, exactly. Very conspicuously through a park.
Yeah. Now, the good news is it's a time of day where there's not too many people around. So there aren't too many prying eyes. Also, it's a little misty. Like a fog has settled.
Yeah, like it's a very like humid, murky kind of day.
Yeah.
Right?
So not a lot of people see her, and the couple people who do kind of give her a little side eye, and she's like, oh, she's drunk. She's sleeping it off.
It's fine. Like, obviously, she's not carrying a bleeding body,
No,
right?
but a dead body.
But clearly a dead body. And if you honestly looked closely at it, you'd know it was a portrait because she's losing her color.
Yeah. And
Right? Like,
I mean,
her eyes are going clear. Like, how weird would that look?
yeah. And also, I mean, she's obviously a portrait. There are tells to let you know what is a portrait.
Yeah.
She makes her way up to the duck pond and goes to like plop her down on a bench and gets her kind of arranged. And then here's someone calling for help from one of the like paddle boats in the lake. And wouldn't you know it, it's the hitchhiking magician from earlier in the book.
It's our hitchhiker friend.
So she helps rescue him from like an angry swan.
Was it a swan or a duck?
I think it was a swan. She sees a duck, but I think it was an angry swan that was
An angry bird, anyway,
Yeah.
is after the hitchhiker.
And he gets to shore and is like, "Oh, it's nice to see you again. Also, is that person dead?" And 13's like, "Oh no, it's fine. It's just a portrait."
And he's like, oh, okay. And you could tell he's still unsettled, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's weird.
13 asks for an update on how things are going with his master, and we get a little more context here. He was sent to the pond to work on his like augury skills,
Yeah.
his orrery. He's kind of like gleaning animal divinations and stuff. And he's lamenting that he's not doing particularly good at it, but assures 13 that his master seems to be on the level. Talks a lot about his divorce, but is definitely on the level. And apparently this guy is like the fortune teller of the stars.
Yeah.
Like
That's
he's kind
what
of
it felt
like he's kind of like a celebrity guru fortune teller guy.
Yeah, right?
That's kind of the what he's laying out here.
Yeah. If I were this hitchhiker person, I would have questions about this master, but
Yeah.
I'm coming at it from a different perspective.
Still not entirely convinced that he's not being
Totally
conned.
scammed,
Yeah,
yeah.
but at any rate, he seems happy and he seems to be learning what he wanted to learn.
Yeah. So good for him.
Yeah.
It's just so unusual. So, okay, then this interesting thing happens where 13 sort of changes her mind about the secretary. Not that she didn't want to leave her there, but that this isn't the right place for her.
Yeah.
So she borrows the hitchhiker's rented boat.
Yep. And they put the secretary in there and like set
And,
her
like,
out.
push her out into
like
the
Viking funeral.
That's what I said, like a
Yeah.
pseudo Viking funeral. That's actually what I wrote down, except she's not on fire,
No.
right? But she's on the water with the ducks.
Yeah.
Because that's where 13 figured she would want to be.
Yeah.
And therefore, that's where Lulu wants to be.
Which kind of makes sense because they are kind of the same person, sort of, if you squint.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Close enough, right?
Close
Right?
enough.
Yeah. The whole pseudo Viking funeral thing was really interesting to me because I feel like it's supposed to have more meaning to me than it does. Does that make sense?
Maybe.
Like, I feel like our author is genuinely trying to say something here, but I'm not picking up what she's putting down.
Maybe we haven't got the full picture yet.
Well, I guarantee you we don't.
One thing that I did notice, and I suppose this is a good enough place to bring it up as any, throughout this chapter, 13 is really haunted by the dead portraits in a way
I'm
that
glad you brought this up.
in the way that she hasn't been in previous chapters. This might kind of tie into that. Like there's a lot of times where she reminisces about people that she briefly met over the course of 24 hours of existence. But like their existence is weighing on her.
Mm-hmm.
Like she thinks about how she doesn't want to end up like the bus stop portrait,
Yeah.
number 12.
Sitting there starving and dirty and
Yeah,
confused.
she thinks about Model L and she thinks about Secretary Lulu like a couple times.
Specifically about the secretary, that she regretted,
Not getting a chance to talk to her more.
not getting to visit her because the secretary had gathered all of this knowledge because
Yeah.
she had been living her own life and she never got to impart that on 13, which is what 13 wanted, I think. Or at
Well,
least in this moment, what she wants.
In hindsight, wishes that she had gotten, yeah. 13 is regretting following her orders rather than doing what she wanted to do.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, for the record, is going to come back more into play as this chapter goes on.
Oh, for sure.
There's definitely a thematic thread going through the chariot chapter here. The magician is like, oh, I'm not going to get the deposit back on that boat now, am I? So 13 buys him some coffee.
Yeah, and like an ice cream. And he does something else interesting before they part ways again. He tells her that like she's being followed.
Yeah.
There's something sinister following her. There is ill intention out there that he sees or senses or just knows about somehow. Maybe he has a hunch. I don't know. It was never clear.
Yeah, that definitely tracks because, again, we saw that glimpse of an angry face. We've seen that she's potentially being followed.
Right?
Like there's definitely ill intent following her or retribution.
Maybe? I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't even know if it's real because honestly, the first couple times it happens, we could pass it off as exhausted paranoia.
I don't know. I think it's safe to say at this point that there is something is after 13 the way that 13 is after the Lulabelles.
Which I get and I'm on board with, right? But at least I get the impression that 13 does not care. Like, she doesn't really react to it. She doesn't show any concern about it. The magician leaves her and she's like, okay, and just wanders back to her car. Like, doesn't even look over her shoulder. She does not care.
I don't know that it's that she doesn't care. I think it's just because nothing has really manifested and she's very focused on her mission. So it's kind of like a back of the mind situation.
Well, yeah.
Throughout the book so far, she's been very in the moment. And it's only now in kind of these middle chapters that she's starting to reflect more and consider herself more. But it's a process that she's still learning. So like for her, oh, I'm in danger. Not important. Need to finish my mission.
Well, and let's also point out just how cheap, quote unquote, life
for a portrait
is.
Yeah,
right?
She doesn't even know in this moment if she can feel pain.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Oh, she will.
Oh, she can.
Right? But she just seems so nonchalant about it.
Mm.
Which, I don't know. It seems unusual, is all I'm saying. That you'd think that 13 would care at least enough about her mission, if not herself, to take that warning. But she doesn't. Or at least she doesn't. We don't read that she does. Right? She doesn't think about it. She doesn't talk about it. She carries on like it's nothing.
And she carries on by getting into her car and setting a course for the next portrait because she knows where she's going to be.
Yep.
Because she has this strict itinerary, so she knows that she'll be able to intercept her. Now, I don't remember if it happened here or if it happened on her way to the park, but there was a point in the car where she's listening to the radio and she overhears Lulabelle's name. And she's like not really paying attention, but that causes her to like focus in on it.
Oh, yeah. It's like, oh, what? Yes, important.
And that's where she overhears basically the news reporting of all of the dead Lulabelle portraits.
Well, it's been a whole day.
It's been a whole day. A number of them have died, and the news has definitely caught wind of it at this
Absolutely.
point. And they don't really know what's going on. They're like, this could be a serial killer situation, or someone might be gunning for the real Lulabelle, and it's just like its process of elimination.
Yeah, if you kill them all, eventually you're going to kill the real one.
Exactly. She kind of loses interest at that point, but it appears that perhaps the PR stunt is working.
Yes?
Maybe.
I don't know what the entire plan is, so I don't entirely know if it's working.
Speaking of the movie, that also reminds me, something that we didn't mention before, the magician's master apparently is a big Lulabelle fan and is going to be at the premiere of the movie. And 13's legitimately like, it's not a really good movie.
Right. Okay.
You might want to brace yourself. But gives him an autograph to pass along to his master and feels weird about it.
Well, because at this point she doesn't feel like Lulabelle anymore.
Yeah, she's really dissociated from that.
Well, she's always been dissociating, right?
Yeah.
But it's getting much stronger now to the point where it feels fraudulent for her to sign technically her own name.
Yeah, it's her name in her handwriting. It's as authentic a Lulabelle signature as you can get from not the actual Lulabelle. But it feels even more like a forgery to her in that moment.
Yeah, that's interesting. I really want to see where 13 goes.
Yeah.
By the end of all this.
Well, right now she's going to the next portrait, to the Gossip Girl.
Okay. I don't mean to sound morbid, but I loved this part.
Yeah.
I found it a fascinating read.
Yeah, so she like hoves up outside of this hotel where the Gossip Girl is parting ways with some liaison. and she gets in her own self-driving car and starts heading off towards the next location. And of course, 13 knows where that location's going to be. It's on the itinerary. But then on the way, she suddenly like veers onto a side street. And 13 is legitimately like left scrambling to try to figure out how to catch her. And what ensues is a very slow car chase to start.
A very slow and legal car chase.
Because, of course, the self-driving cars are following the rules of the road to the letter.
Of course, they're stopping at red lights and and stop signs.
But 13 is frantically trying to, like, recalibrate the navigation on every street because, for some reason, Gossip Girl, Lulabelle, is going completely rogue here.
Yeah.
Like, she's not going where she's supposed to be going. And at first, 13 can't figure out what's going on, and then it dawns on her she knows that I'm after her. She's trying to get away.
Yeah.
That means that she's not following the schedule anymore. She's gone rogue.
Yeah, basically.
Because she doesn't want to die.
Well, as rogue as a portrait in her position can get.
Yeah. So 13 starts getting more and more frustrated with the car, and finally she ends up breaking the navigation system.
She gets so frustrated with the whole scenario, not even just the car, just with everything, that she punches the display screen.
She breaks her finger.
Yeah, and breaks the screen.
Yeah, and the car has to go into emergency manual mode, and suddenly she's in control of the car for the first time.
Which is something she's always wanted.
Yeah, and now she's no longer bound by the rules of the road either. She goes rogue.
Yeah.
She starts weaving in and out of traffic, and it starts to turn into a high-speed chase.
Yeah.
And the Gossip Girl is staying ahead of her still. And they get to the point now where 13 is starting to overtake her. And then they're like driving side by side and they're looking at each other through the window. And the Gossip Girl is yelling something at her. And she's yelling back like, Thank you. Because this is the first real freedom she's experienced in the last 2 days.
Yeah. I wrote down a whole paragraph about this. It was surprisingly exciting because we've known from the beginning that 13 has always wanted, like, specifically control of the car. But if you expand that a little to look at her
control of her life.
Yeah. As a person, she's been seeking this kind of control, right? This agency.
To slip the leash a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it manifests as her just wanting to drive, right? And so she's got that. She's got that exhilarating feeling of just needing to drive a little bit faster, being in control and like commanding the situation. And it is exhilarating for her. Yeah,
she's like, the thought of killing the Gossip Girl is gone in that moment. Like she's just in this moment.
She's not even frustrated with the situation anymore. The anger is gone because she's like, "Woo, I'm driving."
Yeah, and driving fast and driving too fast.
Yes.
And then the drive comes to an abrupt end.
Abrupt halt.
The two cars accidentally veer into one another, and both of them basically just go end over end down the road.
I imagine if this was a movie, it would be very cinematic, right? It would be slow motion and it would be silent, right? It would just be loud action with no noise, or perhaps some manner of beautiful symphonic overture, you know?
13 survives. The car is not so damaged that its safety features don't kick in and cushion her from the worst of the crash.
Yeah.
But it is like a rollover crash.
She is hanging upside down in the driver's seat,
cushioned by the airbag.
Yeah, quote unquote bleeding.
Yeah, she's got a gash on her forehead, but she doesn't bleed blood, but there's definitely some clear fluid of some kind.
She's leaking something because of damage.
She manages to get herself out of the car, partly with the help of Velasquez.
Who shows up again?
Yeah, I want to put a pin in Velasquez here. We're going to circle back to him in a minute.
Okay.
But he gets her out and she's like, Velasquez, what are you doing here? And he's like, ambulance chasing. And she's like, is the other Lulabelle in the other car? And she's like, oh yeah, and she's super dead.
She's super dead.
She did not survive that crash. And then her car like catches on fire.
Oh.
13 is like, I should probably go. And Velasquez is like, yeah, I think mitosis is on the way. You should probably go. So she grabs her binder out of the wreck of her car.
Yep.
And like books it down the street to basically the address for the next portrait.
Yeah, more or less.
Injured and falling apart.
Here's where I want to talk about 13 again.
Yeah.
Because yes, she is a portrait, but she is in shock.
Yeah.
Portraits can experience shock.
And pain. She's in pain. Her hand is in pain.
Yeah. She is broken. She is literally limping.
Yeah.
along. And it just, It astounds me.
Well, and she even catches her reflection in like a storefront window at one point, and for a moment doesn't recognize herself because she doesn't look like Lulabelle.
Yeah, because she's all messy.
Because she's messed up, she's injured.
Yeah, she's been in a wreck. She's not put together.
No.
It's really fascinating to me. First of all, that they would make portraits that experience that.
Well, she also has like the why was I programmed to feel pain moment.
Yeah.
Like, why was I programmed to feel anything? I'm a simulacrum. Why do I feel like a person?
Also, specifically to 13, she was designed as an assassin.
Yeah.
Right? Why not tweak that? Why not make her not feel pain? Why not make her a little heartier than your average portrait?
And why not make her more cold?
Right?
But she has feelings. And the murders that she's been committing, even if they are wink legal, are weighing on her. Yeah. Because she thinks even while she's like racing down the road in that moment of like pure liberation, this is what it feels like to be free. This isn't some minor little rebellion. This isn't putting on a polka dot scarf or keeping my old nose. This is what freedom feels like. But she ends up at the door of the next portrait.
Well, yeah, because again, part of how her shock is manifesting itself is her weird drive to just keep going forward, right? She spares a moment for an affectionate thought about the artist.
And hopes that she's taking her time with that last coat.
Right? Yeah. And then she's like, no, I obviously can't go back, so forward we go onto the next job behind a green door. I am very curious about what this next Lulabelle is going to be.
I am as well. And perhaps we'll find out as we move into the next chapter. But before we go there, I wanted to circle back quickly to Velasquez.
Oh, yes,
and to the Magician Apprentice. Bubble City is this big place. Mm-hmm. It's a metropolis. Skyscrapers thousands of feet high, crisscrossing overpasses throughout the city, millions of people. And yet, she keeps running into the same faces over and over. And in some cases, that's literal, because portraits. But in some cases, that's not necessarily literal. Like, what are the chances that she would run into the magician again? What are the chances she would run into Velasquez again?
I don't know.
And that just seems intriguing to me. It makes this big place feel small. And I don't think that's an accident.
No, I don't think so either.
Like, maybe there's like a little tug of fate going on, because, again, the tarot is playing a part in this.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just, it is intriguing to me that this big place feels kind of intimate in a way.
Familiar now.
And again, I want to tip my hat to our author, Maud Woolf, because I feel like that's not an accident. I feel like that's a pointed addition to the story. But maybe we'll learn a little bit more about what's going on and find out what the next portrait's deal is as we move into Chapter 8, Strength.
Ooh, interesting.
You'll want to read up on that in time for next week. In the meantime, of course, as always, you can give us a little rating and review on your podcatcher of choice.
We always appreciate those. Thank you.
We sure do. You can also get in touch with us via social media.
All right. We are on Instagram, Facebook, Goodreads, and Blue Sky. Mm-hmm. And we are at the Read Along for most of them.
There were some issues with the Internet Archive.
Oh, goodness,
in the weeks prior to us recording this episode. Those have mostly been cleared up, and our backlog is now up to date again. So if you've been listening to older episodes, you should be able to access those again, and they should be up to the most recent one. And you can also get a hold of us via email if you have other questions.
Oh, yes, please. You can reach us at thereadalong@gmail.com.
And with that said, as always, we love you very much, and we'll see you next time.
What's behind the green door?
Also, congratulations on 10,000 downloads.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you for joining us on The Read Along with your hosts, Anita and Scott Bourgeois. All Read Along music is by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. Cover art is by Aaron Beaver. Be sure to join us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Read Along, and check out our group on Goodreads.com.